Hi everyone, my name's Mike, and this is a 5-part video series about making a generator. More specifically, about making a text generator that works as a little bot on a social media site like Blue Sky or Mastodon. This is aimed at people who've never made a generator before, and especially people who are interested in entering ProcJam, which is an event I've been organizing for over 10 years now. So the idea is you can come do kind of 20, 30 minutes of writing or other work, and then do that every day for a week. And at the end of the week, you'll have your very first little generative system. But first, what do we mean by some of these words? So what is ProcJam, for example? What does generative mean? Well, ProcJam is short for the Procedural Generation Jam. You can see some of the entries there on the right-hand side from previous years. And every year we spend a day making generators. So what is a generator? Well, it's kind of a broad word, and the word generative has also changed a lot over the last 10 years because of things like ChatGPT. But what we use it to mean is a little something that we've made by hand that makes other things. So we build little computer programs, they're not always programs, that generate other things, like text or pictures or music. And usually there's some kind of unpredictability involved. So if you think about shuffling a deck of cards together, there's some unpredictability in what's going on if I were to deal those cards out to other people. But there's also elements of it that have been designed and that we know are true. So we know that there's a King of Hearts in there. We know that there's 4 cards with the number 10 on. So there are things that we know about it and things that we don't know. And that combination of things lets us make interesting stuff happen. And usually a generator can make a lot of things. So as in it can output many different versions of the same thing. And you, as the generator's creator, won't exactly know everything that it can do, but you'll have an idea of the kinds of things that it can do. And you'll get an idea of that as we go through the week. So I just included some quick examples from other ProcJams. We're going to be working with text in this video series, but this is an entry called Slums that someone made, which is it generates cyberpunk cityscapes. So here's one example, for example. Here's another one. And you can find this at the URL at the bottom of the screen there, alembic.itch.io. And you can see with these examples that they're all different, but there is something similar about them. They have a similar structure, but all the details are different, the colors, the exact structures being used, but they look really beautiful. Here's another example. It's Watabu's one-page dungeon. There's loads and loads of cool generators on this person's itch page. This one was entered into ProcJam to make the kind of dungeons that you might see in like an old pen and paper role-playing book. It even generates little labels for the rooms to tell you what's in them. It can even come up with names for the dungeons. And it's presented in this really beautiful way. It's a really cool generator. So these are some examples of generative systems that other people have made. But in this video series, we're going to be making a text generator. So you're going to pick a theme, you're going to write some patterns, and then at the end of the week, we're going to put it online, just like this example on the right-hand side of the page here. This is a bot that generates fake New England towns. So you can see that it comes up with a name for the town, where its location is, how many people live there. And we're going to look at how to build this kind of stuff ourselves. And at the end, I'm going to show you how to make your generator into a little bot that posts on Blue Sky. I'm also going to show you that there's an alternative for Mastodon, and you might want to do neither of those. If you're familiar with this kind of technology, you might want to go in a different direction. But my recommendation will be that you make it post on one of those sites. And each episode is going to cover a different part of this process. Today's episode is mainly going to be about inspiration. You don't need any experience to follow this video series. The only thing I ask is that you do all of these exercises by hand. So don't reach for ChatGPT if you normally use it for things. And that's really because I want you to focus on what it feels like to make each part of this generative system. So we're going to go through some really interesting tasks this week, and I want you to think about each one and how they connect to each other. So if you're struggling to think about how you would make a bot do something like this, well, don't worry, because we're going to go through that. But I wanted to give you an example, because most text generators that we use, they're going to work with patterns, and they're going to remix those patterns together. So let's say we wanted a generator to create the titles of fake Christmas movies. We could think about a format for a Christmas movie title, and then we could think about ways to break it up. So, for example, we might have like a list of words or a list of phrases that refer to important days around Christmas. And then we can have some connecting words that sort of link it together, like with, and then another list of words like a person. So this is people who, in some cases are related to Christmas. In other cases, maybe they're related to other Christmas movies, or they're just like an interesting name to add in there. And then by randomly picking from these pattern lists, we can create a situation where it's like an important day with this person. So Christmas Day with my boss could be a fake Christmas movie title. But we're going to go through this process very, very gradually, and we're going to end up building up to writing patterns like this. And I'm going to show you a special language called Tracery that lets you do it. But today, my only task for you is going to be choosing a theme and finding examples for that theme. So you'll see the other episodes, we're going to be writing some examples ourselves. We're going to be creating some patterns and then eventually putting it online by the end of the week. But right now, all you've got to do is think about what exactly would you like your bot to do. So when it comes to picking a theme for your bot, the more specific the theme, the better. So you may not want to go like too specific because that might narrow you down too much, but that can be fun as well. But the point is that the more specific you get, the more you'll be able to reuse the patterns and word lists that you end up writing. So you'll see why this happens later on in the week, and you can always change your theme throughout the week, so don't worry about making the right choice right now. But we're going to be looking for areas where we can dive into like cliches, things that people already know, sets of things. So if you want some inspiration, I recommend actually going and looking at other bots that people have made. So if you go to, for example, this URL on the right-hand side, bluebotsdonequick.com/bots, you will see examples of other bots people have made. Now, I should point out, some of these bots are not generative bots. They are just bots that post from lists of quotes. So for example, there are several like lyric bots for certain bands and music artists. They're not generating those lyrics, they're just pulling them from a big list that they've been given. But you'll see other examples like the New England bot, which actually does create from templates. So you might go through looking at them and just thinking like, oh yeah, I could create a bot that describes villages in Scotland or something. And I've given some examples here on the left of sort of why specificity is good. So book titles is quite a broad idea, but cookery book titles is a bit more specific. We can drill down on particular types of language that those book titles use. And 1970s cookery book titles that are maybe a little bit cursed, then that's really focused, and that lets us really, drill down on a particular idea. So what I'm going to ask you to do is spend about 5 minutes jotting down possible theme ideas. Have a look through the Bluebots Done Quick bot list for ideas as well and inspiration. And there's sort of there's some common flavors of bot, and I kind of recommend that you pick one of these. So one is for titles or names of things. So the New England bot does name villages, but it also describes them in quite a lot of depth. So I would recommend just choosing a title generator for something like book titles, cookery book titles, that kind of thing. Or if you want to, kind of descriptions of things. So 1 to 2 sentences. Slogans are good, little biographies. You could do like fake Twitter profiles for people that don't exist, that kind of thing. You'll see lots of examples if you browse the Bluebots Done Quick example list. So spend 5 minutes jotting down possible ideas, and then after that, the second task I have for you is to find 10 real-world examples for each of these themes. Or if you've got loads of themes, maybe just your favorite ones, or just do it until you run out of time. But basically, if you choose, for example, 1970s cookery book titles, then go and find some cookery books that were written in 1970, do some research on the web, and make a list of 10 real examples of those things. Or if you want to, generate descriptions of mountains in Scotland or mythological creatures that live in Europe, go and find some lists and grab some examples. So create a text document somewhere. And as you're going through this, if you find, I don't really like this example, I don't really like this theme, that's fine. You can ditch a theme, come up with a new one. Like, don't worry too much about it. And basically, by the end of this session, I want you to have picked the first theme that you want to use, the theme that you want to try and take into the next episode to work on the next part of your bot with. So I've put a couple of other examples here of like, try to find examples that are a bit different from each other. So don't just find one web page or source, go and find a couple maybe. And feel free to include some more strange examples. So don't feel that they all have to be kind of very serious or similar. You can add in a few more poetic examples if you want something a little bit strange. And look for examples in strange places. So on the right hand side, I've got Goodreads, which is really good if you want like book titles or author names or examples of blurbs of things. It doesn't have to just be Wikipedia. You can find information that you want all over the web in places that you wouldn't normally think. And I included just a couple of examples here. British cheeses is going to be an example I use throughout the rest of this video series. So I went and found some examples of names of interesting and sometimes uninteresting British cheeses. Or maybe for a longer one, you could have something like a summary of a Hallmark Christmas movie. So I found some 1 to 2 sentence descriptions. Some of these are a little bit long, but 1 to 2 sentence descriptions of Hallmark Christmas movies. And it doesn't matter whether we know how to generate these or not. They're just going to be sort of inspiration for us in the next episode to think about the kinds of things we might want to write. So have some fun doing that. Come up with some themes, find some examples, and I will see you tomorrow for part 2 of this series. Cheers.